What I'd like to show you is how to connect your binding on a quilt with a bias connection so that you can't tell where you started or stopped. I have already sewn on the binding and done double mitered corners on all my corners. So the first thing you want to be aware of when we're starting when you start putting your binding on is you need to leave at least a 10-inch tail on your binding, and then start and do a double mitered and go ahead and put your bias or your binding all the way around your quilt. You want to stop sewing your binding so that you have an opening of about 10 to 12 inches, something like that, because it makes it easier to sew the two together. Now, the real trick about this is your quilt needs to be towards your body. So like put it in your lap, bring it down so it's comfortable. You need to do it from this side. We'll start with the left piece of binding. We're going to fold it back to what we're going to find about what the center is. Here's the center. So I'm going to fold this about to center, lay it right on my quilt, and I'm going to finger press it with the crease. And I'll just let that lay right there. Then I'm going to take the right side and I'm going to bring it up, lining it up with the edge of my quilt, and I want to be shy of this piece of binding by 1/4 of an inch. So they're both just laying here and there's 1/4 of an inch opening between the two. Now I'm going to take a pair of scissors, right here, and I'm going to lift up this piece, the left piece of binding, and I'm going to cut right on the fold. Then I'm going to take this piece I just cut off and open it up. And whatever the width is of the binding that you're using, I'm going to lay it on the right side, even with the fold. Just lay this on, and that's my cutting line. I'm now going to cut just this tail, exactly the same width of what my binding is. And then these are exactly the right way now to sew. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up. You always start with the left side, then you do the right. So my left side is open and it is right side up. My right side, I'm going to open it also, and we're going to put it right side down. And you notice I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to put these two together perpendicular to each other, lining up the side edge and the top edge. And I'm going to pin them, which is why you'd like to have at least 10 inches in here to do it. You're going to now sew diagonally, let me see if I can hold that down, from the upper left to the bottom right, diagonally across, and when that opens, it'll be a perfect 45-degree connection, and your binding will just fit perfect on the top of your quilt. It'll just stretch out perfect without any gaps in it. So you pin it, and there it's pinned. The top edge and the right edge are exactly even, and I'm going to sew from the top left to the bottom right, diagonally across it. Okay, we are now going to sew. Okay, wait, we gotta get our machine. There we go. There we go. We'll just sew straight across. And we will trim our seam allowance right here. We'll trim that off. And when this opens up, it just lays right, once you trim that, it's gonna just lay perfectly even in here, and there'll be no gaps because you have left that 1/4 of an inch, so it just pulls it nice and taut. So I'm just gonna trim that with a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can actually iron that seam open and it might even lay better, and you can see it just lays as flat as it can right up against the quilt, and you can't tell. That's just like every other bias connection on your quilt. So finish stitching that down and turn it to the right, to the back side, and hand stitch it down.